Hello friends, I welcome you on behalf of Kalam IAS, and today I'm going to discuss the test you just gave, and I hope everybody did well. Uh, my motto, my intention is to just give you a brief about how to go about it, how you would have scored better in whatever you have done. You see, when it comes to paper 1, you see the score is hovering around 120 and 110. So this is a static part like history, culture, society, and parts of geography. It's a very static part, so you can have use your prelims knowledge and score better. Without wasting much time, the first question. What I'll be giving you is brief about what are pointers you are supposed to write. Since you are going to give the mains, I'm assuming that you have written enough introductions. You know how to go about the introductory part, but all I'm trying to give you is a kind of structure the way you can score better. That's what we are trying to inculcate in the students as far as RLP, that is reverse learning program, is concerned. So let's get to it one by one. So the first question, let me first read it out for you, says that the achievements and the contributions of the Gupta period in ancient India continue to influence contemporary Indian society, culture, and governance. Elucidate. So it is a 10 marker question. It's a 10 marker question. So since it's a 10 marker question, so we have to just understand the demand of the question first, as we every time we say. Achievements and the contributions of the Guptas is the first part of it, and the second part of it is influence on contemporary society, culture, and the governance. So this is part 1. This is the part 2. So let's get to it one by one. So the first part is achievements and the contributions. So in the introduction part, you can talk about that Gupta period is a transitionary phase from the ancient to the early medieval period. Let's talk about the time period is around 320 AD. Okay, so before Guptas, we had a very centralized rule called as Mauryas. I'm not including post-Mauryas. After this, we had the period of Harsha. And then we start with the early medieval India. Okay, so this period is a socially, economically, and culturally, this is a transitionary phase if we compare this with the ancient Indian history. So this has to be clear in the introductory part. I've given you the time period. The time period is 320 AD till 550 AD roughly. Okay, let's get to the second part of it. The main body of the question. It talks about the influence it is having on the contemporary Indian society and culture. Then we'll talk about the governance part. So it has influence on and the what is the influence on society and what is the influence on the culture it is having. So let's get to it one by one. As far as the main body is concerned, you just have to understand that you have to give the characteristics and contributions of the Gupta Empire. The first very important is you see the caste system. We follow today the religion and the cult. We follow today the Sanskritic literature. We follow today. Biggest example is The books of Kalidasa you already know. You might have marked up in the prelims. The Malivika Agnimitram, Ritu Samhara, Devi Charaguptam, and other books. So these books and Bhashas literature, you can talk about Panini's Ashtadhyayi, which gives the background for the grammar. Or the Sanskritic literature. So this is the biggest impact we are having on the culture. So don't forget to write Kalidasa, everybody will be writing it. You can write Bhasha in addition to that, and not to forget Panini's Ashtadhyayi, 8 Adhyay, 8 anthologies, I would say, which talks about the literature. And you see the stem, the starting point of this literature, the contemporary influence comes from the Kalidasa, where you see Kalidasa in a post-independence or in the contemporary India is considered to be as the father of Indian Sanskritic literature. It has been translated into English. Abhigyat Shakuntalam has been translated. Ritu Samhara has been translated, and there are a lot of books. This is a secular literature which talks about the relationships between the gods and the goddesses, the relationships between people and the gods, and something like that. So you can talk about this. As far as the caste system is concerned, we all know that the formalization of the caste system takes place in this time period. Let me rub this for you. The formalization of Indian caste system, I would say that the caste system in its practicality was implemented during this time period, and which is the biggest influence it is having. The caste system, like Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, which we follow in the contemporary India, you would agree with me in this, that is being followed because in the Gupta period, this was very much prevalent. I hope you agree with me. Okay. So, and again, as far as the religion is concerned, we do see, as far as the influence on the contemporary society is concerned, the concept of Bhagavatism and the concept of Jainism and BC, which we follow in the contemporary world or the contemporary India, is shown is being patronized during this time period. In one hand, we see the cult of Vishnu as Bhagavat was popularized. I'm not saying emerged. It emerged in the 2nd century BC, 200 years or 100 years before the Gupta period. But still, it was popularized. Even now, the Bhagavats is a cult within the Hinduism, is popular just because of this time period. Again, it gave patronage to Ajantas and Elloras. The biggest example is the Ajantas and Elloras. Yes. Okay, so these are the examples of consolidation of the Brahminical ideology, but also rise of Bhagavatism centered on Vishnu's worship, emphasizing on the cult of Bhakti. So the present day Bhakti you see, you get the information from all these things. And now you see incorporation of the lower castes into Hinduism also was brought through this. Okay. The concept of Harihara, Buddha as avatar of Vishnu is also seen. So you can talk about all these things in a nutshell. Okay. Again, when we talk about other literatures, so you can talk about the legacy. You can talk about the legacy, and you can also talk about the influence they are having on India. Look at these things. You also see these sort of things in the contemporary India also. Also, there are certain things which are we still follow in Indian culture, is the culture of science and or mathematics. So you can talk about the Aryabhatta. The Gupta period saw Aryabhatta or Aryabhatiya written by Aryabhatta, and other literatures. We do see that in mathematics. You can talk about Aryabhatta. How in contemporary world all the space initiatives are aimed after okay. You can talk about Pancha Siddhantika. Which was compiled during the Gupta period, and which gives us the concepts we have today, the concepts of sciences like zero, decimal, concept of zero, decimal, the value of pi. Okay, so you can talk about these things in a greater length. Again, when we talk about the conclusion of these things, let me make it very clear to you that in questions like this, you have to write a futuristic but a culturally driven conclusion. How can you do that? Again, first let me talk about the question. The achievements and contributions of the Gupta period in ancient India continues to influence contemporary Indian society, culture and governance. As far as governance is concerned, in the governance part, you can talk about us. For conclusion, you have to write during the Gupta period, as far as governance is concerned, we see the rise of feudalism in India. Guptas were also living with the Vagatakas, who are ruling in the Deccan and who are giving the patronage in to the Ajanta Elloras. So after writing this, the governance part, you can talk about the continuity and the changes. How that gradually what we witnessed in the 3rd century, 4th century AD and 6th century, a lot of those things still are being practiced by the Indian society, by the Indian culture, and by the Indian masses in its culture, within its society, and in its governance. The biggest example is how we are giving autonomy to the states, though we are a we are a unitary state. So you can talk about these things. You see, there is no cooked answer as far as these questions are concerned. You just have to make use of it. I'll give you an example of how UPSC has asked questions about the technology, science and technology in the medieval times. Last years, they have asked this question. So you have to be very open about what your second question. How did the Pala dynasty, so this question is about Pala dynasty, how did the Pala dynasty's naturalistic style of art in ancient India expresses a departure from earlier artistic traditions? Pala art as a departure from the earlier Now, you might have heard, like, this is a 10-marker question. Okay. Again, I read it out for you. How did the Pala dynasty's naturalistic style of arts in ancient India expresses a departure from the earlier artistic traditions? So, in a nutshell, all you can start with is that Pala art, promoted a more realistic, more humane, and more, humane depiction as compared to the earlier ones. The biggest example you can talk about is the Nalanda, the area of Nalanda, where we see the art and architecture being more realistic. But if we compare this with the earlier ones, how do we see the different one? If we see the earlier art forms were the modern art, the influence of Pala art can be seen as the influence of Bhaktism and UPSC some years back, like 4 years back, asked a questions about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's not get into that, but just giving the heads up. As far as this question is concerned, if you compare this with the earlier ones, then you see that what was happening earlier and what changed during this time period. When we talk about a comparative analysis, what used to happen before and what is happening during the Pala period, then we'll able to understand, fill the dots, and would get into the skin of the answer. I'm assuming that most of you might have faced problems in this part, so let me make it a bit easier for you. Okay, so you can you don't have to write these things, but you just have to understand that how you have to go about this. Since I will be making it very shorter, but I'll be dictating certain things which you can write as far as this question is concerned. In the first part, you can talk about what was the art and architecture before. When we talk about post-modern art, we see Gandhara and Mathura art. There is a question on Gandhara and Mathura art. I'll show you and I'll talk about these things in a greater detail. As far as the post-modern art is concerned, we see that in post-modern period, there is a greater influence from the Greco-Roman. The Greco-Roman gods were depicted in a more manly, there was supernatural, there used to be a halo. Halo, you understand? There is a kind of this halo around a person. But here we see during Mahayana Buddhism, during Bhakti cult, Tantricism, gods are depicted as a humans. Their noses are longer, they have similar easy features, they don't have big build, they do not have muscles like the Gandhara art. As far as Gupta art is concerned, it's more what do you call it, centered around Vishnu, Shiva, and the Trinity. And along with this, we have the rise of Ajanta and Ellora. But during the Pala times, we see there is a marked difference. There is a marked difference. And what is the difference? Pala artists sought to represent their subjects, including the Buddha, Bodhisattvas, and other deities, with a degree of realism. There is a degree of realism. The So there's a degree of realism. You can highlight this point. That is point number one. Then there is a kind of narrative art being promoted. How do we say that? You can talk about this. What is a narrative art? The Pala artist humanized the divine figures, depicting them with more human-centric activities or characteristics. This humanization aimed to create a more relatable. It was more relatable to the common masses. Okay, as compassionate connection between the God as well as the masses. This is the point number two. Then the third point is they were more sensitive. They were more sensitive and they were more, emotional. They're more sensitive and they're more emotive in the sense that the Pala artists infused their sculptures and paintings with a range of emotions reflecting the compassionate and empathetic aspects of Buddhist or of Buddha. Okay. It was more emotive and it had a great regional influence. If you go to the east, like if you go to Odisha, if you go to Bengal and parts of Bihar, starting from the Nalanda and other areas, you see there is a regional influence in Odisha, in Bengal, in the regions of Bengal, in the regions of Bihar, and these questions. And this is a very important part of the, if you talk about the state services also. Pala style of art also showcase regional influences with variations found in different regions in the Pala kingdom for a diversity of their artistic expression with a broader naturalistic styles. That is what you can talk about. But as far as the conclusion is concerned, let's talk about the conclusion now. You see, as far as the conclusion is concerned, you can talk about the distinguishing feature and themes of the Pala dynasty, which are naturalistic styles, which are a form of realism, humanism. Make them distinct, make them different from the contemporaries and from the other dynasties. So which is the finest example we are having. If we talk about some of the examples, we can talk about Sompura Mahavihara. Biggest example we have Sompura Mahavihara. We see. Then we can talk about bronze image of Buddha. You see, there have been bronze images, and there's a question also. But the depiction of Buddha, you can see, if we talk about Takshila area in the northwest frontier, it's very different. If we talk about the Uttar Pradesh area in the Mathura region, it is very, very different. And if we talk about the Madhya Pradesh, it's a slightly different depiction. And still, when we compare this with the East, that is Palas are ruling in the East, it is entirely and very, very different. Okay, so you can talk about this. Talking about the third question. From Indus Valley civilization to modern times, bronze sculptures depict cultural evolution of Indian civilization. Again, a 10 marker. Again, it's a 10 marker. So if you go about questions like this, you have to talk about continuity and change. You can, this phrase is very important as far as Indian history is concerned. Wherever we see there is a continuity also and there is a change also. We can start with the dancing girl of Indus Valley civilization. Okay, we can talk about images of Buddha. We can talk about images of Nataraja. So, starting from the Indus Valley civilization, coming of Buddha and the Chola times in 10th century AD, there is a continuity and change as far as the sculpture. I hope you understand what is the trajectory. It's a trajectory from the 3300 BC till 10th AD in South India, where we have Indus Valley civilization in the northwest frontier. So there's a continuity and changes. What are the continuity? The bronze sculpture, which is using a lot of technique. But here there is no, the sculpture, it was casted in a different way, may not be, you see, here the dancing girl doesn't signify any religious figure, but here Nataraja is proto Shiva or Shiva. So we see there is a continuity of the bronze sculptures in the Indian civilization. I give you some of the other examples which may, like during the Gupta time, there is Sultanganj Buddha I was talking about. So in the main body, after the introduction, you can talk about the starting that we see in the Indian civilization, in the Indian culture, there have been a continuity as well as changes. What are the continuities? These are the continuities where we see, as far as the bronze sculptures are concerned, they were used in the prehistory and prehistory, but it was later used in the history. I hope you know the difference between prehistory and the history. Prehistory, where the script is not being deciphered, but in the history we see script has been deciphered. Okay, so this is one part of it. Okay, so as far as the Pallava is concerned, we do see Shiva in the medieval times. In the medieval times, there are creatures in the medieval times. We have creatures like creations like Yali, a mythical creature as a guardian sculpture in South Indian temples. Okay, so this is the example of medieval times. And as far as the modern times is concerned, sculptures like Meera Mukherjee, there's a person called as Meera Mukherjee. She's making sculptures out of this silver, you see, bronze, because as you see, bronze is expensive. Only few people like who are well-to-do can afford it, but still a lot of new sculptors, a lot of new architects are being using these things. I hope there is no problem as far as this question is concerned. You could have easily guessed it, done it. Next question. Again, next question is about Indigo Revolution. Has brought a new phase in India's freedom struggle, and it was in many ways a marked departure from the 1857. Okay, what should be the introductory part? You have to introduce in a very brief the concept of Indigo Revolution and 1857 as the War of Independence. The fundamental differences between the two you have to tell. Now, the Indigo uprising took place in 1859 to 1860. And you see the revolt of 1857 was around 1857, mid of 1857. Okay, so what are the reasons? First, we have to understand, and what are the you see different aspects of this. We also have to understand. This revolt was a revolt of farmers, peasants of Bengal. This revolt was a revolt you see, there are many people involved. I hope you know that there were peasants, there were army men, there were priests, there were zamindars, there were talukdars involved. So the nature of the revolt of 1857 was violent. First of all, it was involving a lot of stakeholders in the North Indian belt, starting from the Delhi region, parts of Punjab region, Haryana region, Uttar Pradesh, and parts of Bengal. We all know that. But as far as this Indigo revolt is concerned, the time period is this, and what are the people involved? These are the only peasants centric. It was a localized revolt. Okay, it was a localized revolt, and it was largely peaceful or non-violent, I would say. Okay, they were protests, they were you see no rent campaigns, but it was not violent to this extent. You compare it with this revolt. That is point number one. You have to understand this fact. Okay, as far as the people involved is concerned, first of all, is the farmers. Here there are peasants, army people, priests, zamindars, talukdars, and the local people involved. Here, as far as the geographical extent is concerned, this was in whole North India and parts of East India. This was only concentrated towards the Bengal region. Okay. The third point is the objective. It was in the Indigo revolt. The objective was very narrow. It was the indigo was grown without the permission of the local people, and they were protesting against that here. But as far as here this thing is concerned, priests were not patronized. The livelihood of priests was in danger. The livelihood of peasants was in danger. The livelihood of army was in danger, and small zamindars were not happy with the kind of land revenue systems. Talukdars were not respected, army people were not promoted, and there were a whole lot of problems. You know about it. But as far as comparative analysis is concerned, then you have to take into consideration the nature, like violent or non-violent, the geographical areas, the stakeholders, nature of the revolt, geography of the revolt, the stakeholders, like the people involved, okay, and the the people who were there, like they were Vishnu Viswas and Digambar Viswas. You all know that. And as far as 1857 revolt is concerned, there were people like Mangal Pandey, so you can talk about people like this. Okay, so you could have easily done this part of it. Now, how Indigo revolt brought about new phase of the struggle in India. How Indigo revolt has brought a new phase of struggle in India. Impact of Indigo revolt. Is very important. That was part number one. Here you can talk about the bigger impact. In 1860s, you see, Indigo Commission was established. Okay, so what did Indigo Commission do? Indigo Commission kind of came up harsh on those people who were making indigo. You see, means the farmers will not be forced to to grow indigo, because indigo was the one which was making the land barren, because indigo is not a edible crop. It's a commercial crop, and if you grow indigo time and again, it will somewhere or the other decrease the fertility of the soil. So these are the technical parts you all know. The impact, the broader impact was, it also kind of created literature. So you can talk about Neel Darpan. It also gave an impetus to the future peasant revolts, and it ushered the era of Gandhian though it was confined, the Indigo revolt was confined to a small geographical area. It had a broader vision. You can talk about these things. So you can talk about the passing of Indigo Act of 1862, which came into being, and you see these two revolts. One was a violent revolt, second was a non-violent revolt. One was a revolt which was a kind of heavily suppressed. Indigo revolt was also suppressed, but the long-term impact of the Indigo revolt was seen by the educated middle class. Ultimately, after 1885, these things played a very important role. And to be very specific, the peasants played a very important role in the Indian National Congress, and gradually in the Gandhian politics. You can talk about these things in the concluding lines. Okay, so let's talk about the next question, which is highlight the Central Asian and Greco-Bactrian elements in the Gandhara art. Okay, this question is very important. As far as the geographical area of Gandhara is concerned, we all know this is the present day Kandahar. I hope you know that. So this part, when we talk about the post Mauryan art, you should know certain things for now. This was the time where the trade and commerce was flourishing. A lot of Greeks, Romans came to India. The famous Silk Route was prevalent from Benares till Mathura, till Afghanistan, and going to the China, which is connecting the Roman Empire. This was the Silk Route. Why silk becomes very, very important? Silk is very much in demand. So are in demand these cloths, the kind of handicrafts being made by Banaras people from Varanasi or and Mathura area. The food stuff is going, the spices are going, the cloth is going, cotton is going. So this time period is time period where we do see that in political, there is a political vacuum, but as far as trade and commerce is concerned, trade is flourishing. And how do we know about it? We know about it through the gold coins. I hope you know about it. So this is the premise on which you have to talk about the Greco-Roman world. So Greek and Roman and Bactrian people, like the people from the Afghanistan area, came to India. Along with these people, these like Kanishka and all, came the sculptors also. So they were influenced by the Greco-Roman art, and they depicted the Indian gods. There was this depiction of Buddha, but his depiction was heavily influenced by Apollo. Like the cloth, the muscular body, the mustache, the cloth, these the Gandhara art Buddha is wearing is tightly connected to the body. First thing, it is a bit wet, so your body anatomy is shown. You have a mustache, which is seen in Apollo, like the god of the West, or if you call the god of the Rome. He has a mustache, so as Buddha has a mustache. If you Google these images, you would easily understand that there is a clear similarity between the body posturing of a Buddha and the Apollo, we see curly hair of Buddha, similar to the curly hair of Apollo. So these are the kind of influences we are having if we compare this with the Greco-Roman world. The Vajrapani found in the right hand of future Buddha, Vajrapani, you all know, is considered as a transformed symbol of Hercules. Hercules is the god of the Apollo, like face of Buddha. Again, natural realism, wavy hair are seen in the images of Buddha. In Gandhara also resembles about, you see, about the Hellenistic tradition. You all know that what is Hellenistic? Hellenistic means the Roman or Greek. As far as the material is used, we call it a stucco painting. You can talk about, you can write this, stucco. It's a kind of plaster, white plaster, which is often used. Okay, so you can write those things, the features, the eyes, the eyebrows, the hair, the cloth, the body posture, the jaw. You might have heard about those things called as a Greek god. So Buddha, though he's a god of the East, but he's depicted like Apollo. So there's a clear-cut influence of the Greco-Roman art on the Gandhara school. I have told you where is Gandhara. It's present-day Gandhar. And what is the reason why these people are coming? They are coming because the Greco-Roman kings or the Bactrian kings are traveling through this Silk Route. Through Silk Route, these people are coming to India and staying in India, ruling the India for 500 years. A lot of people do not talk about these things. Like after the Mauryan period declined, we see Greeks, Roman, Parthian, Shakas or Scythians coming to India and settling down, ruling here for 500 years. And it was only after the decline of this empire we see the rise of the Guptas. Okay. Next we have question number 6th. A past year question. I think although governed by question number 6, I'm explaining, governed by the same basic rules and guidelines, different classical dance forms evolved in different regions with their distinct styles. So question number 6, although governed by the same basic rules and guidelines, different classical dances different classical dances evolved in different region with their distinct style. Now, this is a very important part, and this is you have to elaborate these things. The dance you see was mentioned in the Natya Shastra. So you can start with the Natya Shastra. So you can talk about how Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni, Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni you can talk about, and you can give the example that how the Sanskritic literature plays the basic is a very important part in the inception of the classical dances of India. And when I talk about the classical dances of India, I'm talking about the Bharatnatyam, I'm talking about Kuchipudi, Kathak, and others. So again, talking about, you can talk about the in the main part. You can talk about Bharatnatyam, which is in Tamil Nadu. Initially, it's a solo female dance, but now popular among male and group of dancers also. The fire dance is a very important dance. Depicting Tandava of Shiva. So this is a very, very important part as far as this question is concerned. So Bharatnatyam, when we talk about the Bharatnatyam dance, Tandava, Lasya is a very important part of this. Tandava is a dance of cosmic Shivji, we all know that. When we talk about other dances like Kathakali, you can mention Kathakali also. The evolution is still the same, but there is a regional distinct identity. Kathakali is from Kerala, you all know, traditionally a male dominated dance, but now performed by female also. So Katha means story and Kali means performance and arts. Movements are influenced by ancient martial arts and athletic traditions, huge elaborate costumes, amazing makeup styles. You all have heard about and seen those things, face marks they use. Okay, so this is the second part of it. Then you can talk about Mohiniyattam. Mohiniyattam is also from Kerala. Signifies the female version of God Vishnu. Okay, so Mohini is related to the charming women avatara of God Vishnu. Is unique with off-white costume, a prominent one-sided hairstyle, also called as Kuduma. Lasya, or the beauty aspect, is very, very dominant here. Okay, again, Kuchipudi you can talk about Odissi, which talks about the Tribhanga posture. Okay, so you might have studied those things in a greater detail. That's why I'm going about it in a bit hurry manner. Then UPSC has asked question about Sataria in Assam. You can talk about Sataria also. You can talk about Manipuri dance also and Kathak dance also. So you see that these are the kind of connecting the dots from the Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra to the present day context of Indian distinctiveness as far as different forms of dance are concerned. Dance forms are different, but gods are by and large same. Gods are by and large the same. So these examples highlight the distinctiveness of classical dances and its forms in different regions in India, despite sharing common foundation. They said the Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. Each dance form reflects the rich culture and heritage of India, its artistic expressions, and unique to its place of origin. You can talk about that. Again, let's talk about question number 7. So this question is very important and I'll take a moment over it. Persian literary sources of medieval India. Of medieval India reflect the spirit of that age. It's a 15 marker question. It's a 15 marker question and they are writing comment. And I hope you know what comment is. So you have to give a detailed comment on this. Okay, so let's talk about what the Persian literature is. And you see, this was a question asked by UPSC in 2020. So this is a past year question. You have to have, and in 2023 there was a question about the kind of science and technology introduced by the by these people. But as far as this question is concerned, I want to give you a detailed explanation about it, starting from to Amir Khusro to Badauni to Abul Fazl. So it's an open-ended question on medieval. If you would have studied even like one NCRT page or two NCRT pages about this, you would have easily fetched 15 marks. So it's a Persian literature, its influence on the society, its influence on the administration, and influence on the historical writing. One fact I would tell you in the introduction, we can write that after coming of Turks or after 12th century, I'm not saying that there was no formal writings of history, but to be actually speaking, formal history writings started off after the 12th century. You can talk about these things. So starting from the 12th century, there have been writers like Al-Biruni, Amir Khusro, Abul Qadir Badauni, and Abul Fazl. I repeat, Al-Biruni, Amir Khusro, Abdul Qadir Badauni, who has written a book called as Muntakhab al-Tawarik. Mutabkh, Muntakhab Tawarik. You all know Abul Fazl has written Ain-e-Akbari, Akbarnama. Amir Khusro has written a lot of books. I'll show you. Al-Biruni has written Kitab-ul-Hind. It was only these people came to India and India became rich in various aspects. Let's talk about those things also. I would show you some of the important literatures written during this period, and then we can have a discussion on this. Now, as far as music and literature is concerned, let's talk about the literature of this time. The Persian literary sources of medieval India reflect the spirit of this age. So what are the Persian literature? Famous historians are Hasan Nizami, you can talk about him, Minhaj ul Siraj, Ziauddin Barni, Siraz Asif. Okay, Barni, you can talk about Barni's writing of Tariq-e-Firozshahi documented the history of Tughlaq dynasty, while Minhaj Siraj wrote Tabqat-e-Nasiri about Muslim dynasty. Tabqat in Urdu means event or history. So you can take a moment, write down these things in a greater detail. Famous historians like Hasan Nizami, Minhaj Siraj, Ziauddin Barni talk about Tariq-e-Firozshahi documents the Tughlaq dynasty, Firuz Shah Tughlaq and Muhammad bin Tughlaq, who was considered as a mad king. Again, Amir Khusro and his time period, he is under the time period of Alauddin Khilji. His uncle Jalaluddin Khalji, and the later kings also. So you see 1252 till 1325, a big time period we were talking about. So he writes extensively in Persian, which shapes our understanding about the time period. So this is very, very important. You have to take a moment and write these things down. You do not know that they'll ask about Barni or they'll ask about Amir Khusro. Amir Khusro is also very important because he is the one who is writing, who has invented sitar, who is writing bandish. A lot of Sufi music today is being inspired by the famous Amir Khusro. Okay. So I give you a moment, and so that you understand that what is the importance of this. This is a past year question. Okay, so you have to understand. I also want to give you some of the other books like Aine Akbari. Aine Akbari is written by, again, I told you about this thing. Okay. His work included Khazain Fitu, very important work, which gives us an idea about Alauddin Khalji, and Tughlaq-Nama, detail of the rise of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Sanskritic Persian literature is also very important. This you can use for this year's mains. It's very important. You can talk about the literature, regional literature, Chandabardai, Bengal literature. You just write those things as your fodder points, because you don't have to write these things for the answer. I again repeat, this is not the part of the answer. This is the supplementary information I'll be giving you. I'll be giving you 30 seconds. You can just take a screenshot of this and just write those things for the mains, because this is very important historical source. So these literatures gives you an idea about the kingdom of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, the administration, his adventures, the adventures of Alauddin Khalji, the adventures of Akbar, his misadventures. Like, I give you another example of how there are two sets of people. One set of people is Abul Fazl, and one set of person is who writes Muttakhab, and one set of A's so both of them are the disciples of Sheikh Mubarak under the Akbar. And Faizi are the sons of Sheikh Mubarak. So he criticizes the administration of Akbar and he praises. So it gives us the idea of the positives as well as the negatives. So you have to understand this part also. Again, I tell you, Badauni, who's a disciple of Sheikh Mubarak under Akbar, is the one who criticizes the policies, the religious policies, administrative policies of Akbar. And this person, Abul Fazl, is always praising Akbar. So you have to understand. In the concluding parts, you can talk about that. These literatures gives us a detailed idea about what is right, religious aspects, administrative aspects, this is wrong, religious aspects, or administrative aspect, or cultural aspects. Like, for example, Badauni doesn't like Akbar to marry like Hindu women, Akbar to follow Hindu customs. So he says that he has gone kafir. Something like that you can talk about. So I hope this is clear to you. So quickly moving to the next question. I hope I have not taken much of your time, but I'll quickly take all the questions of yours. Question number 8 is, what is the main feature of Vedic society and religion? Do you think some features are still prevailing in Indian society? This is a 2023 question. So Vedic society and religion. To 600 BC. Okay, I hope you understand this. This is the time period, and it has been further divided among early Vedic and later. In the early Vedic period, the society was more egalitarian. And in the later Vedic period, it was more the economy of early Vedic period was more cow-centric, and in later period it was more agri-centric. As far as the caste system is concerned and condition of women is concerned, the condition of women was better, and in this part the condition of women was not that good. The caste system here, early Vedic period, was not prevalent, but here it was more prevalent. We all know that. But as far as the continuation of these rituals in the contemporary times is concerned, let's talk about that. Now, this is very interesting part. The evolution of contemporary Hinduism today's Hinduism, you talk about Upanayan, the birth rituals, the marriage rituals, the death rituals, Upanayan rituals, every ritual, every ritual is takes back to the Vedic times. That is point number. The point number 1 is the worship of deities. Again, the Puranas, the gods, the goddesses are still the same. Okay, the karma, the concept of karma and renunciation is the same. The caste system We have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. So it is a continuity. I've talked about with you continuity and change. You understand how it works. Okay, religious ceremonies. Are the same. Spiritual philosophy of dharma, artha, kama, moksha is same. Modern gurus, like we have Sadguru, we have different panths of Gorakhnath Panth and all, which are like stems from the Vedic period. The cattle and the cow worship, Gaur Raksha and all are the same. So you can talk about those things. So it is still a matter of continuity and change. I hope there is no problem in this question. This is a straightforward question. Moving on to the next question. The ninth question, very important. Though the great Cholas are no more yet, and their name is still remembered with the great pride because of their higher achievements in the domain of art and architecture. The time period of Cholas, 850 AD onwards, till roughly around 13th century. Okay, I hope you know the time period. And this is a transition between ancient to modern or to early modern. And this marks a distinct time period. Okay. It is not only very important, like there is a historian named as Neelkanta Shastri, who talks about the also there is a historian called it who talks about very important terms used in local administration. So the first thing is architectural, zenith of architecture. The Cholas pioneered the Dravidian style of architecture, not to forget the famous Brihadeshwara temple. In Tanjore. Very, very important temple. Built by Rajaraja in 1010 AD. Then Gangaikonda Cholapuram was another very important. Artistic excellence was seen as bronze sculptures, is seen in creating the Nataraja statue. Very important is statue, which is a distinct feature of Chola architecture. Okay, they also use the technique called as lost bags. Okay. Okay, so sculptures depict both divine and secular aspects. It's very intricate, detailing is very important and very distinct. Chola temple served not only the place of worship, but for education and patronage, music, Okay, not just education, music was practiced, commercial activities used to be taking place, dance used to take place. Okay, dance used to take place. So you can talk about those things. In the biggest example is that it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, living Chola temples, like so broad, so bigger, amlakas, those, I don't want to get into the styles of it, the kind of kalasha they have, how they would have put that heavy kalasha on the top of 125 to 136 meter height of temple. You never know the technology they have. It's of like more than 1,000 years ago. These temples were built, still standing tall. So it's itself is a marvel. Okay, so there's no explanation which can explain these architectural marvels. Again, talking about the last but not the least, question number. And I hope you understand, because these questions, I don't think you would not have went through these things while you're preparing, but I'm just giving you some heads up here and there. Again, the world history question: how far is it correct to say that the First World War was fought essentially to preserve the balance of power? World War I was fought to preserve the balance of power. Now, when it comes to the world history questions, I've been telling you can see it on our page also. I did the whole course on the world history in the Kalam IAS itself. I kept telling people there'll be questions, and you don't skip this part. There were questions, like you can cross check it. 45-mark question. This was a question asked in 2024. There was a question on Industrial Revolution. There was a question on, I think, German unification, or something, some events like that. So again, World War I was fought between the two powers, like the France, Italy, called as Triple Alliance, Entente. Entente is in French. The position of Italy was a bit this thing. Really sorry for this. It was fought between Britain, France, and Russia. And Germany, Austria as triple alliance. Germany, Austria, Hungary. Okay, Italy was the part, but later on it sidelined. That's why I could not write that thing. You know the event, that how Italy first said that they'll come with the Germans, but later they, in the Second World War, they sided with the others, the Germans. They sided with. Again, talking about the Triple Entente. In French, it's called Alliance, and Germany, Austria. The immediate cause was killing of Archduke Ferdinand. Okay. Now, preservation of the Now, when we talk about, it was essentially fought for the preservation of the balance of power, the First World War, is that, you see, when we talk about the German unification, which happened in 1870, and you have to understand that, you have to read that also. Before 1871, when Germany was unified, Germany was not that industrially strong, but after 1871, and especially in 1910, just 10 to 12, 9 to 12 to be very specific, Germany had surpassed British as an industrial power. It was very good in industrial production, Ruhr Valley. It was producing pretty well. The biggest example is BMW, is Bavaria, it comes from Bavaria. Surpassing Britain, which alarmed Britain. There was an alliance system between France, Russia, as well as secret alliances were forming to balance the power. Okay, to balance the power against whom? Rising Germany. It was started, Germany started making itself militarily strong. Germany wanted more stakes because it was Britain which was ruling the world. Britain had colonies in Africa. Britain had colonies in Americas, South America. France had colonies in South America. France had colonies in India, of course. France had colonies in Africa, North African regions. So Germany, when started rising and surpassing Britain, also wanted share in the imperialism, share in the expansion of these areas. On top of that, in 1870s, we see there was a war between France and Germany, and it was France which was humiliated after France-German unification was declared from the Versailles fort in France. So this humiliation, these balance of power equations ultimately led to the First World War. Again, the role of press, that it is one nation like India, Pakistan, or China, or United States. You might have heard about those things in the present day, where China is creating its puppet states. So as America, so as Russia. So in those days, it was Germany versus Britain, because these two were the rising superpower, balancing industrial power, balancing a psychological power. Before the war actually took place, the press was, playing a role of warmongering. That sometimes the Germans would, German army would surpass the Britain army or the Navy or the Air Force. So there was this war before the actual war took place, and the immediate cause was so it was Ferdinand, because he was the heir. He was about to become the king, and he was killed. And Austria was supported by Germany against Serbia, and Serbia was supported by Russia against these people. Germany supported Austria. Russia supported Serbia. So and there was this whole chaos. So you can talk about those things, and then you can conclude that it was only after the First World War that the seeds of the fascism, the seeds of Nazism were sown, and which ultimately led to the Second World War also, after the infamous Treaty of Versailles. So you can talk about those things in a nutshell. Okay, so I'll stop here. Those of you who have any doubts regarding these questions, because past year papers are very, very important, that they give you a light, because we can't just shoot arrows nowhere. We have to just focus on the important meaty areas, because you have just not like more than 2.5 months left. You have to prepare other subjects also, like optionals and all. So our initiatives would help you the way or the other. We are open to discussions. You can take help from us the way or the other. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much.